Hello, everybody, and welcome to Difference Makers here on BGTV. My name is Pastor Tyler Warner from Calvary Chapel in Trussville, Alabama. I'm so glad you decided to join us today. We're going to be talking about goals again, the kinds of goals that you need to be setting in your life. I got 3 examples for us today. Common topic around here, but that's because it's just that important. But before we get to it, I want to remind you about ironworks.media. Ironworks.media is something we're building over at Calvary Chapel, Trussville. We're building the premier Christian resource network for the church, and BGTV is really helping us do that. And I love the new studio today. Isn't this cool? The book is back here. It's not on the desk anymore. If you know, I've been watching for a while, you know where that is. But they're doing a great job, so please be sure to give a like and to subscribe to this video. There's lots of other podcasts on this network, not just mine. And if you're watching this somewhere else, then go and look out for BGTV Studios and be sure to be a part of that. But as I said, ironworks.media, we've got books, we've got podcasts, we've got conferences, we've got Bible teaching through large sections of the Old and New Testament, growing every single week. And if you want to join our mailing list for that, we got a new book coming out at the end of this year you're not going to want to miss. You can go to ironworks.media, join that mailing list, and you can download 2 free ebooks right away. Almost said audiobooks, because I've been working on the audiobook for the new one, for the book called The Desolation of Israel. That should be released very soon. Maybe by the time you see this, you'll be able to grab that on Audible, and you can always find the books on Amazon, but we'd prefer you get them on ironworks.media and get a better price for you there. It might take a little longer to get there to you, but that's what we're trying to build over there. And if you want to find out more about the church, you can go to calvarychapeltrussville.com. And for all my folks that do not live around here, let me remind you, it is Trussville, not Trustville with a T, as nice as that might have been and sound real spiritual. Every time I travel, somebody comes up to me, some sweet lady comes up, that is so great that you're in Trustville. I'm like, well, thank you, but that's not where I live. So Trussville, Alabama, thank you all for tuning in today. All right, we're talking about goals again. Goals again. That might be a good topic for this title for this video today. But why are we talking about this for? Well, because Difference Makers is all about motivating and inspiring you to live the life that God has prepared for you. That God has called you, 1 Corinthians 7:17. The Lord has works prepared beforehand that you should walk in, Ephesians 2, verse 10. And knowing that, we're trying to kind of keeping the theology and the Bible study of it as our foundation, and then building on it and making it very practical about how to go about a life if God has called you to live it. And so I, in my own life, have seen that I know what God has called me to do, but if I do not set important goals for myself, I'll never be able to get there. And the reason I talk about it so much is not just for my own sake, but I see so many young men, young ladies too, but mostly young men, that they know what God has called them to do, or at the very least they hope that God has called them something to do, and yet they can't get started. They spend forever living at home, forever dating some girl instead of marrying her, forever developing a plan, never getting out there and actually making it happen. And the way you do this, you've got to have a direction to walk in, you've got to have a target, you got to have something to aim for. If you don't know where you're going, you're going to waste your time. You're going to go home, you're going to come in every evening and just kind of settle into the routine, watching Netflix, watching the game, I don't know, going out with friends, doing something stupid, but you're not doing anything that is moving you forward in your life. So we could talk all we want about how you need to stop waiting for things to happen to you, but this is what it is. You make goals. However, many of us have set goals. Everybody makes New Year's resolutions every year, and almost all of them fail, as I can testify from my own life. But that can be discouraging, because you set a plan, you set a goal, you set a resolution, this is where we're going to go, and it just doesn't work out. And so you get some people that really set a bad rap on goal setting, that you shouldn't do this, that it's just a waste of your time, and the successful people are going to be successful no matter what, or the system's keeping me down, or I just don't have time for this, whatever. Well, I'm here to tell you that in my life, I have experienced with every possible variation of how to make a to-do list, how to plan your day, how to set goals, and I have found that you need a combination of techniques. You can't just find the one thing. I'm the kind of guy that goes to a restaurant and I order the same thing every time. If I go to a restaurant and I order something the first time and I like it, that is all I'm getting at that restaurant for the rest of the time. My wife loves to experiment and try different things, but I'm the person that when I find what I'm going to do, I'm going to stick with that. That's how I like to play guitar. I'm not interested in getting one of those digital boards and having 1,000 different amp sounds. I want to have one amp, and that's what my amp sounds like, and find a way to maximize that. And in the same way, with my own personal organization, I want it to be, here's what we're going to do, and we're going to stick with that. But it's simply not that simple. You need to be able to vary the kinds of goals, the kinds of processes that you use, and I've got got 3 of them for you today. You've probably heard of each one, but we need to find a way to blend these together. And I think if you can follow this system, it'll be helpful for you. I have a huge heart for guys that they're stalling out at the beginning of their life. It's like the beginning of a race where you rev the engine, but something goes wrong, or like the beginning of, maybe for some of y'all this is more relatable, the beginning of Star Wars when Anakin starts the pod racer and it stalls out and doesn't get to go forward. And that's kind of feel like your life has been. I'm eager to see you get after it and make something wonderful out of the life God gave you. So we're going to look at 3 different kinds of goals that you need today, and I hope that this is helpful for you. The first kind of goal you need is what is known as the BHAG. I first heard about this from Jerry Falwell, who is the pastor of Thomas Road Baptist Church in Lynchburg, Virginia. I went to their high school, and I heard him talk about this there, and it's sort of legendary around that campus and Liberty University that he talked about this a lot. And as I understand it, Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great and Built to Last and a few other things, came up with this first, but I heard it from Jerry Falwell first, so he gets the credit. What is a BHAG? Well, it's an abbreviation, it's an acronym. Big, hairy, audacious goal. You like that? Big, hairy, audacious goal. That's a BHAG. This is a big, hairy, audacious goal. This is your long-term target. This is the years-long or even lifelong place that you want to end up. And in a domain of your life, you have a big idea of where you're going. We've talked about having big ideas here before. We've talked about trying big things for the Lord. Well, this is having a target that you want to reach that is a little ambitious, or maybe a lot ambitious. It's too big for you. It's more than you can chew right now. It's a idea that you have that other people look at themselves and either say, that poor guy, or they say, okay, that's nice, but we'll see where he really lands. But a BHAG is something that you need. It's going to be in any domain of your life. It doesn't need to be just one for your life. We've gone over in recent weeks the 9 or the 10 aspects of your life that I like to use in my own planning. And I say you should have 1 or 2 for each one of these. Let me give you some examples of a BHAG here. If we're talking about in your physical life, in your fitness, your body, maybe you need to lose a bunch of weight. A big, hairy, audacious goal for you might be to lose 100 pounds. I'll never forget. I just remembered this. This was at my brother-in-law's house. It was my brother-in-law and his wife and my wife and me. And kids were off playing, and it was New Year's Eve. So my sister-in-law said, let's make our New Year's resolutions. And one of the ones that I set down was, I need to lose 1 dog food bag worth of weight. And it was like, what are you talking about? I said, well, one of those big, heavy dog food bags, that's about 40 to 50 pounds. And that's about what I need to lose. And that was a lot. I mean, you pick up one of those things that's heavy, and when you realize, wow, maybe I could run a lot faster if I didn't have one of these strapped to my back or strapped to my gut all the time. And that was a big, hairy, audacious goal that I still haven't met yet. I've made some progress, but I keep it in my mind that that's where we need to go. And to be clear, to be honest, every time I go to the store and I see one of those big, what are they called, the old Yeller bags of dog food, I'm like, yeah, don't eat out today, Go to the gym, do some push-ups or something. That's a big, hairy, audacious goal. Maybe it's a habit in your life. If you want to give up smoking, I saw an article recently that smoking is back on the rise among younger folks, and maybe this is something that you want to quit doing. To give up smoking entirely, there's some people that is their obsession because it's ruining their life, it's ruining their health or their finances or whatever it may be, and they want to stop, but they can feel like it's just impossible. That could be a big, hairy, audacious goal for you. You could put pornography in that as well. I know just about every man I've ever met who engages in pornography has a big goal that we've got to stop this. Maybe you need to standardize that for yourself a little bit. It could be that you want to make $1 million, or you want to be worth $1 million. That's a great goal to have. We've talked on here a lot. The Lord is not against prosperity in his people. So set yourself a big target. You say, I want to make $1,000. Well, that's going to happen before long. Maybe when you're 11, that's a big goal. But when you're a grown man, you need to have something a little bit bigger. Maybe you're a writer and you want to write a bestseller. That's one of my BHAGs. I would love to show up on the Amazon bestseller list, not because that's, if you don't know, that's the real bestseller list. At New York Times, they curate that list. They pick it for themselves. They were exposed about that in a lawsuit a few years ago, that it's not real bestsellers, they just pick them. But Amazon, it's all based on the metrics of who sells what. And so, buy The Desolation of Israel and leave an Amazon review. But maybe you want to do that. I found that very often accomplishing one big goal, you need to set up another one. So maybe you've written your book or you've recorded your album. Well, now what are you going to do? What comes next? Are you going to try to sell it? Are you going to market it? What is it? Maybe it's just, I want to have a vacation at a fancy island somewhere. I want to be able to take my wife to Turks and Caicos, or I want to be able to go to Hawaii and go to a luau there because I've earned enough money that I can do that. These are all great big goals. Businesses need big, hairy, audacious goals. It can't just be, we're going to show up and do what we need to do and go home, because that's not going to excite anybody. Ministries need these. If all you want to do is get through Sunday morning, that is easy for a church. It is easy to do Sunday morning. I could do Sunday morning by myself if I wanted to. But that's not going to make it any kind of great ministry, and it's probably not going to help very many people. And not only that, it's not going to give anybody else a chance to serve. But having something in mind, like we're going to move to a new building, we're going to build something in Trustville on this property that we bought, and maybe we're going to buy some more properties, and here's the building. That's a big, hairy, audacious goal. And I had some folks leave the church when I first announced it because they said this is just too much, and you shouldn't want something that big. I beg to disagree. And not only that, you need some big, hairy, audacious goals in your life. And the good news is Ephesians 2:10 tells us God's already got a few for you. God's already got a few that he has planned for your life. And if you spend some time in prayer, he will show you what they are. But I think also the Lord delights in seeing people that he has called take hold of their life and say, all right, what are we going to do for the name of Jesus and for the life he's given to us? When you're planning a BHAG, you need to think to yourself, where do you want to end up? If everything goes right, where would you like to be? This is not the time to pick it apart. This is not the time for you to say, oh, I'd like to one day own a Ferrari and drive that around town. But I mean, what would I even do with a Ferrari? I'm never going to have that much money. If I had that much money, maybe I wouldn't want to do it. And everyone's just going to make fun of me anyway, and it'll probably get stolen. So that's not the time to do that. Set a goal for yourself. What do you want? What do you want? Sometimes we can't even admit to ourselves what we want. What do you want? I can steal a line from Community here. If you ever watched that show, there's a line there where he says, you can do whatever you want. You just have to know what it is. And I would say for all of us, we need to know what it is that we're chasing, and this is not the time to pick it apart. That day will come, but just choose something that excites you. So many times we think God wants us to live small. That's not true. God wants us to be humble. That is not the same thing as being a small person with a small life. If you've got something like this, it's going to motivate you, it's going to keep you going, it's going to remind you what all your hard work is for, and you're going to be able to look back and say, not only did I accomplish what I wanted, but God was faithful to bring that to me. So, your first assignment today is go out and daydream, friends. Go daydream of what your life could be. Pick yourself a big, hairy, audacious goal. All right, that's number one. Number two, second kind of goal that you need, I heard this from Professor Dave Earley, Dr. Dave over at Liberty University in the seminary there. He's one of those guys that some people have theories, some people have testimonies. Dr. Dave Earley is a guy that has testimonies. Planted a church in Las Vegas, among other things, right there on the Strip with a bunch of homeless people and everything. And great story, great guy. He talked to us about what I'm going to call SMART goals. SMART, that's another acronym, S-M-A-R-T, SMART goals. You've probably heard this before, and maybe in your office you are sick and tired of having to generate SMART goals for your work. And I'd say the reason most of us hate doing that for the job is because I do not care enough about this job to think this in depth about it. But this is something that can be very useful for your life, and I myself have found it very useful. This is a way to take the big, overwhelming dream of, we're going to win a Super Bowl, and you're going to break it down to manageable chunks that you can measure, you can look at. I'm going to get into the acronym in just a minute. You can measure, you can track, you can know when you've completed them. This is different from a BHAG. BHAG is just, what's the biggest thing you can think of? SMART goals, all right. How are we going to get there? How are we going to do that? This is how you keep yourself from spinning your wheels in frustration, saying things like, I've been working at it for 6 years, but nothing's ever come of it. Well, how do you know when you're moving forward? How do you know if you're making progress? So let's run through this acronym real quick. SMART is the word. The S stands for specific. Your goal needs to be specific. Generic goals are not so good for you. They might work for a dream maybe, but say something like, I want to get in shape. That's a good thing to want, but it's not very specific, is it? That's not what body mass index do I want to be at? What races do I want to accomplish? What weight do I want to be at? Do I want to engage in a competition like a triathlon or, a bodybuilding competition or something like that? Do I want to be able to fit this size of clothing? See how much more specific those things are? It's under the broad goal of getting in shape, but you've got to make it specific. You have to have a definable target so that you know when you get there. If we say as a church, our goal is to serve Jesus and love God's people, those are both good goals. But how do you know if you're doing that or not? A specific goal would be something more like, we want to take 100 people through a discipleship program this year. That's specific. You see what I mean? That is very specific. Or we want to teach all the way through the entire Bible, verse by verse, from Genesis to Revelation. That's a specific goal we have at Calvary Chapel. The broad goal would be, teach the Bible or have a biblically literate congregation. But if you make it specific like that, that is going to give you a target that you can shoot for. All right? The next thing is M. So SM, specific, measurable. Measurable. Very similar to the previous one. This means you have to pick something that you can track. You have to be able to quantify. Qualify is all about quality. Quantify is all about quantity. It's measurable. You can be a kind person. That's quality. But the number of homeless people you fed today, that can attach a number to it. So measurable, something that you can track in your life. You can't just set goals that, even if they are specific, how do you know if you're getting there? A specific goal might be we're going to take people through a discipleship program. Measurable would be, okay, how many? How many? What kind of program? What are the qualifications we're looking for? You need this so that you can track what you're doing and know if you're succeeding or not. If you say, I want to be more spiritual and get closer to God in 2025, fantastic. I love that goal. I don't want to minimize it. However, that is not as measurable as something like, I'm going to do my devotions every day from 9 a.m. to 9:30. Why does that matter? Because you know when you failed. You know when you failed if you have a measurable goal. You can say, did I do what I was supposed to do today? And some things are harder to measure, so you have to get creative in thinking, how can we measure this? Sometimes businesses will have goals that we want to make more money this year. How much more money? You see the difference? How much more money, at what percentage, and at what rate do we want to make money? That's measurable goals. Number 3, A, so specific, measurable, achievable. I've heard A used as different things before, but we're going to go with achievable today because that's how I learned it. Meaning, you've got to pick a goal that you can do it, that you can reasonably expect to do it. It's not too big. Big, hairy, audacious goals are big targets that you're chasing down. Smart goals are not. Smart goals are what is something that we are confident that we can accomplish. It might still be difficult, but it's not going to be impossible. If you want to make money and you say, I want to be a billionaire in 6 weeks, that's not going to happen. That's not an achievable goal. It's simply not. Well, you look at something maybe more like, all right, by the end of this year, I'd like to receive a raise going into 2026, and I'd like to get a good bonus at the end of the year. That is an achievable goal, all right? That's something that is achievable. Might be difficult. Might have one of those bosses. Maybe you haven't done so well up to now, but that's an achievable goal. You want to pick something that you can reasonably accomplish if you put your mind to it. Don't make it too small, because small goals that you accomplish all the time, they don't help you any, right? Getting out of bed every day is an achievable goal, but it's not great. Which leads us into number 4. So we have specific, measurable, achievable. Number 4 is relevant. Relevant. This is sometimes a hard one for people to understand, but I've actually done workshops in ministries on how to do this before. So let me explain what I mean by relevant. Meaning the goal that you pick here has to contribute to the direction you're going in. And this is where in business you get the vision statement, mission statement, all that stuff. And I find that stuff sometimes painfully boring, but it can be helpful. But for you, you want to compare this to your BHAG, to your big goal. Where do you want to go? What are you wanting to become? And is this goal going to be relevant? So in my life, we want to have the church grow and we want to see it successful and stuff. Me and my life learning how to paint, which is one goal that I have, is not relevant. That's not relevant to that goal. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It doesn't mean it's unimportant. But it means, is this actually contributing to the big targets of our lives? Because sometimes we can hide in other things that we're good at, other things that are easy for us to do, and not actually progress forward. So we try to pick all these things that are irrelevant because we can accomplish them. And so you don't want to do that. You want to pick things that are actually going to move you forward in where you want to go. A relevant goal for getting in shape, for example, would be, I'm going to start counting my calories every day. That's relevant because that matters. Something like, I'm going to also mow the lawn every week. That might be a good goal, but that's not relevant to the big picture of what we're trying to get after. So you need to pick a relevant goal, and this is why I think multiple BHAGs are good, that are underneath supplemented with multiple SMART goals as well. Number 5 is the letter T. Today's program is brought to you by the number T. This stands for time-bound or timely, I've heard it said. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. That is, we've got a deadline. We are not just going to get a degree. We're going to get a degree in 4 years. We're not just going to make this company profitable. We're going to make it profitable in 18 months, right? You see the difference? Time-bound. You have to set a deadline for yourself. Otherwise, you've got your whole life to get it done. And you're never going to get it done. If you say, in my lifetime, I want to write 1 novel. Okay, well, if you're young, you've got, 60 years to get that done? You're not going to make any kind of meaningful progress on that. You've got to set deadlines for yourself. You've got to set a time upon it. And this is when it gets real, because something specific, that's not too threatening. Something measurable, okay, that can be intimidating, but it doesn't really affect you too badly. Achievable, that actually feels good because you're picking something that you can do. Relevant, that's good. That's good discipline. But once you hit time bound, now all of a sudden it gets real. Now all of a sudden you have set up a fail state for yourself, all right? A fail state. If you're not able to fail at your goal, then it doesn't really mean anything. If you can't possibly fail, you've not set a goal for yourself, and you're probably not working at anything worthwhile. There are a new genre of board games and video games now called cozy games, which are kind of like Animal Crossing sort of thing, if you know what that is, where it's really you're tending a garden, what is it called, Stardew Valley, things like that, or you're just petting the sheep, or you're going there's no fail state, and those can be fun, but that's not really a meaningful accomplishment if you've accomplished those things. In life, in the same way, if all you've got is things that you cannot possibly fail at, then it's no good. You need a fail state, because you have to know when you're behind or when you're ahead. You set yourself up for success because you say, this time was supposed to be done by the end of the year, and it's now 3 months early, and we finished, and that's a big celebration for yourself. And if you finish 3 months late, that's failure, but it's also, not like you are a failure. What that does is it communicates information that can be useful to you. You need to know, was I biting off more than I could chew? Did I introduce some bad habits? Do I need to tweak this a little bit? We're still moving towards the same BHAG, so how are we doing here? And so this is what it is. SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely or time-bound. Take your BHAG. Once you've daydreamed and you kind of know what you want to be, settle on a few difficult goals that will string together like a set of pearls and move you in that direction. It's got to be small. It can't be like, a SMART goal to accomplish the big thing. No. Make it small. Make it last like a week or a year or 3 months, and then see what it does at the end of it. You string enough of those together, and you're going to get to your big win. So that's the second kind of goal. We had, first of all, our BHAG, then we had our SMART goals. The last one is not an abbreviation or an acronym. These are process goals. I don't know where I first heard about process goals, but I remember when I did, I thought, that's what I need. BHAGs are great. They're really big. They're really fun. They're fun to tell other people about, but you can't do them all at once, and you're going to probably have a BHAG for a long time. SMART goals are great, but you will find that they do not apply to everything in your life that you're trying to do. We need something else. We need something else to fill in the gaps. You got the big one. You got the steps that we're going to get there. But there are other things that you can't quantify. I would say, especially as believers, there are things in your life that you just can't attach a number to. And so, since there are some goals that cannot be measured, that don't fall under that SMART goal rubric, all we can control in some of these instances is the process. And that's what I mean by process goals. A process goal is a commitment to a process, to a routine, to a system of activity that eventually is going to bear good fruit for you. It's the kind of thing where I have no idea how long this is going to take, and even the goals that I get from this are not really able to be measured. I'm just going to keep going. I would say for a Christian, this is how daily devotions really ought to be measured. You can't really say, well, I want to, hit a level 4 Christian by the end of the fiscal year. That's not going to work, because there's no such thing as that. And in fact, those that try to quantify their religion too much, Jesus even has words for them. They're like, hey, God is a person. He's not an algorithm for you to hack and try to get after. So I want to get better in my devotional life and reading my Bible and studying the Word and praying and all that. But how do you attach a number to that? Well, maybe you can't. But what you can do is you can instead track the process, meaning I'm not going to be able to evolve into the next level as a Christian, but I can set a process goal that I'm going to read my Bible every day. That's the process. I'm going to read my Bible every day. I'm going to go to the gym 4 days a week. That's a process goal. Now, you can attach some more metrics or something like that, but you understand. I want to have a better family. Well, how do you qualify that? How about you set a process goal that we're going to eat dinner with each other twice a week? If you say, I want to be an author, but I just don't know I've never done this before, I've never written a book, I don't know how to go about it. How about you say, I'm going to write 1,000 words a day? That's all the things that we have under a SMART goal, but it is a process. You don't know when you're going to get there, but you're going to get there. Songwriting, same thing. You got to write new songs all the time, so set a process for yourself. If you want to learn a language, Duolingo sets up your daily process goal for you. Then that owl won't leave you alone if you take it for too long. Because sometimes all you can do is the process. All you can do is work the system. Keep on going. Churches, yeah, there's things you can do to grow the church, but you're always going to hit a wall. And after a while, all you can do is work the process. The best advice I ever got about how to grow your church and how to make it great is Pastor Sandy Adams, I believe, from Stone Mountain, Georgia. He said, make Sunday mornings awesome. He says, everything else you do is always going to be secondary to that. Make Sunday morning as great as you can. And then once you've done that, just keep on doing it. Keep on working that process and trust that over time it's going to pay off. So 3 different kinds of goals that you need in your life. You need BHAGs, a target to shoot for in your life, a big one that is kind of intimidating, but it's also exciting. Number 2, SMART goals. They're necessary to make you do the work, to actually hold your feet to the fire and make sure you get it done. And then process goals are necessary to help you build habits over the long haul that will bring you towards those big goals. I want you to know where you're going in your life. You've got to set goals and then work backwards from them. And the way that you do that is you set a big target. You might even have smaller BHAGs under the big one. I would say that what is my spiritual goal in my life? I get it from Paul in Philippians, and my goal is to rise from the dead. And the only way I can do that is by believing in Christ and serving him all my life. So beneath that, I'm going to have lots of things that are smaller goals, like growing in prayer, like reading my Bible, that I can attack with all of these different techniques. I can look at the life God gave me, and I know what I'm called to be. Like Moses was called to be the deliverer of Egypt, but there was constant smaller and larger steps along the way. And in the same way, that's how you need to break up your life and go forward. There are many techniques about how to do this. These are the ones that have helped me. And I'm saying this to you. I'm thinking of the guy that is still stuck at home, still working in a dead-end job, not going anywhere. Maybe you broke up with a long relationship and you're just hurting. Friend, just get after it. Pick up these tools and get after it. If God is with you, and this is the life he gave you, you have permission from the Lord to go after it with ferocity. And I can't wait to see what God does with it. This has been Difference Makers. Thank you for listening today on BGTV or wherever you may be finding us. Don't forget about ironworks.media. Calvary Chapel Trustville is building the premier Christian resource network that you're going to love. We've got books available, including this one right here, The Desolation of Israel. That's the new one that came out. Join our mailing list and you can find out about everything that's coming up next and download 2 free ebooks from the website right away. And if you want to find out more about the church I pastor, go to calvarychapeltrustville.com. Thanks for listening. Now go out there and make a difference.